Clara's knees hit the wooden platform as laughter erupted around her. "Too wide to wed," someone shouted. She pressed her hands against the hot planks, tears blurring the dust beneath her. Then two small voices cut through the cruelty. "We want this one, Daddy." She looked up. Two little girls in blue dresses stood before her, their eyes filled with something she hadn't seen in years: acceptance. If you want to see how one moment changed everything, subscribe now and stay until the end. Drop your city in the comments, let me know where this story reaches you. The summer heat of Missouri hung thick as Clara Ruth Brennan stood in her mother's kitchen clutching a worn carpet bag. Sweat trickled down her back. Her hands trembled. "You're not staying here," her father said. Clara's voice cracked. "Papa, please. I can work. I can help around the farm. I'll do anything." Her mother stepped forward, arms crossed tight against her chest. "Anything you've done, nothing but shame us since the day you were born. We married you off at 17, thinking you'd finally be someone else's burden. And now look at you, back again, fatter than ever." Thomas died of fever. Clara's throat tightened. "I didn't cause it. I nursed him for 3 weeks straight. I barely slept. Doesn't matter what killed him," her father interrupted. He wouldn't look at her. "What matters is what people say." "And what do they say, Papa?" her mother answered instead. "They say you worked him to death. Say your weight broke his spirit. Say God punished him for marrying a woman shaped like you." Clara felt the words like a slap. She'd heard them before, whispered behind hands at church, muttered in the general store. But hearing them from her own mother's lips was something else entirely. "The neighbors mock us," her mother continued. "The preacher's wife won't even speak to me anymore. We can't keep you here, Clara. We simply can't." "So, what am I supposed to do?" Clara whispered. "Where am I supposed to go?" Her mother pulled something from her apron pocket and shoved it into Clara's shaking hands. A train ticket. "There's a wagon of mail-order brides leaving for Dusty Creek, Texas. You're going with them." Clara stared at the ticket. "But I'm not a bride. No one wants—" "Then you'll find work." Her mother's voice was sharp as broken glass. "A kitchen. A boarding house. Scrubbing floors. I don't care what you do, but you are not staying in this house." Her father grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. His grip was rough, impersonal, like he was moving livestock. "Papa, please. Train leaves in 2 hours. Don't come back." The door slammed behind her. Clara stood alone on the porch, the summer sun beating down on her shoulders. Cicadas screamed in the trees. The air smelled like hay and dust, and something burning far away. She'd been cast out again, first by her husband's family after Thomas died. Now by her own blood. At 25 years old, Clara Ruth Brennan was a widow, unwanted and completely alone. The train station was crowded despite the heat. Farmers hauled crates. Children chased each other between wagons. And near the platform, 3 young women in bright summer dresses stood giggling together. The mail-order brides. They were pretty, slender, the kind of women who made men tip their hats and stumble over their words. Clara recognized the type. She'd grown up watching girls like them get chosen first for every dance, every church social, every opportunity. One of them, a blonde with a parasol, noticed Clara approaching and nudged the others. "Who's that?" The second girl, a brunette, squinted. "She's not on our list, is she? Maybe she's going as livestock," the third one said. Laughter erupted. Clara's face burned. She clutched her carpet bag tighter and kept her eyes fixed on the ground. "Just get on the train," she told herself. "Just get on the train and find a corner and disappear." But the blonde wasn't finished. "Excuse me, ma'am," she called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Are you traveling to Texas too?" Clara didn't look up. "Yes." "As a bride?" "No, I'm going to find work." "Work?" The brunette giggled. "What kind of work? Rolling flour barrels?" More laughter. Clara's throat tightened. She wanted to say something sharp, something that would wipe those smug smiles off their faces. But the words wouldn't come. They never did. She'd spent her whole life swallowing her voice, making herself small in every way she couldn't make herself thin. The station master called out, "All passengers boarding for Texas territory." Clara moved toward the train. A man's voice rang out from somewhere in the crowd. "Hold on there. Who let her on the bride wagon? She'll sink the whole thing." Laughter rippled through the station. Clara's face burned hotter. She climbed aboard without looking back, found a seat in the rear corner, and pressed herself against the window. The train lurched forward. Clara watched the station slide away, then the town, then the fields she'd known her entire life, all of it disappearing behind her. She pressed her forehead against the glass. It was warm from the sun. "I won't cry," she whispered to herself. "I won't cry. I won't cry." She cried. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of hard benches and dust clouds, and the mail-order bride's laughter drifting back to her corner like poison. Clara barely ate. She barely slept. She just watched the landscape change outside her window. Green hills flattening into brown plains trees, giving way to scrubland, the air growing drier and hotter with every mile. Texas. She'd never been this far from home, had never imagined she would be. On the third morning, the train pulled into Dusty Creek Station. Clara looked out the window at the small platform. A water tower cast a thin shadow. Heat shimmered off the wooden planks. And a crowd had gathered, ranchers in dusty hats, women in bonnets, curious children darting between legs. They were waiting for the brides. The blonde smoothed her dress. "Finally, I heard Texas men are desperate. Should be easy pickings." The brunette laughed. "Just smile and act helpless. They love that." The third girl adjusted her bonnet. "What about the fat one? Think anyone will take her?" "Please, she'll be cleaning stables within a week." Clara pretended not to hear. She waited until the other women had disembarked before she smoothed her own sweat-stained dress as best she could, and made her way to the door. The heat hit her like a wall. She stepped down onto the platform. The wooden planks were hot through her worn boots. The sun was merciless, and she could already feel perspiration beating on her forehead. The crowd went silent. Clara felt every eye on her, felt the weight of their stares pressing down on her shoulders. A rancher near the front muttered, "Who's that?" "She's not on the list," another man said. "Station master said 3 brides. I count 4. The station master checked his clipboard, frowning. "We were expecting 3 ladies from Missouri, not 4. Clara's voice was barely audible. "I'm not a bride. I'm just traveling through, looking for work." "Work." A woman's voice cut through the air, dripping with mockery. It came from a well-dressed lady in a green silk dress standing near a fancy carriage. "What kind of work could you possibly do, dear, rolling yourself downhill?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Clara's hands trembled. She took a step backward toward the train, wishing she could disappear. "Look at the size of her," someone said. "Too wide to wed," another voice called out. Then they started chanting, softly at first, then louder. "Too wide to wed, too wide to wed, too wide to wed." Clara's vision blurred. Her chest tightened until she couldn't breathe. This was a mistake. Coming here was a mistake. She should have stayed in Missouri. Should have found a bridge to sleep under. Should have, "We want this one, Daddy." The chanting stopped. Everyone turned. 2 little girls, identical twins in dusty blue dresses, broke free from the edge of the crowd. They ran past the pretty mail-order brides without a second glance, past the ranchers, past the mocking faces. They stopped directly in front of Clara. The first girl looked up at her with wide, serious eyes. "She's perfect, Grace, just like I said." The second girl, Grace, nodded solemnly. "She looks like the mama in our storybook, the one who makes the apple pie and saves the baby birds." Clara stared down at them, stunned. I don't understand." The first girl grabbed Clara's hand. Her fingers were small and sticky with something sweet. "Please, Daddy. We want her." "Emma," a man's voice called from the back of the crowd. Grace, come back here. But neither girl moved. Grace tightened her grip on Clara's other hand. No, we want this one. The crowd parted. A man walked forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered. His face was shadowed by the brim of a worn hat, and his boots struck the wooden platform with heavy, deliberate steps. Everything about him was rough. His hands, his jaw, the way he carried himself. He stopped in front of Clara and looked down at her. His eyes were dark brown. His expression was unreadable. Not cruel, not kind, just assessing. You need a place to stay, Clara stammered. I was just going to find work. Simple question. His voice was low and rough, like gravel in a dry creek bed. You need a place or not? Clara looked at the twins, still clutching her hands. Looked at the mocking faces behind them. Looked at the blonde mail-order bride whose smug smile had faltered. Yes, Clara whispered. I do. Then you'll come with us. The station master sputtered. Sam, you can't be serious. You came here to find a proper bride, not... My daughters made their choice. Sam's eyes didn't leave Clara's face. Seems clear enough to me. The woman in the green silk dress stepped forward. Samuel Hollister, have you lost your mind? You can't possibly be considering taking that woman to your ranch. What will people say? What will Dorothy. Sam's voice was quiet but firm. This ain't your concern. It most certainly is my concern. I've been waiting for you to come to your senses for 2 years now, and instead you're going to humiliate yourself with, I said it ain't your concern. Something in his tone made Dorothy step back. Her face flushed red beneath her bonnet. Sam turned and walked toward a wagon at the edge of the platform. The twins pulled Clara forward. Come on, Emma said, beaming. You can sit between us. Our house has chickens, Grace added. Sometimes they're mean, but Daddy says they're just protecting their eggs. Clara stumbled after them, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Behind her, the crowd erupted in whispers. Did you see that? He's taking her? Those girls have lost their minds. She'll eat him out of house and home before winter. Sam Hollister always was strange after Margaret died. Clara heard every word, felt every stare boring into her back, but she kept walking. Because 2 little girls were holding her hands, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, someone had chosen her. The wagon rolled away from the station wheels, creaking over dry ground. Dust rose in clouds behind them, and the late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly. Clara sat between the twins on the wagon bench, their small bodies pressed close to hers, despite the heat. Sam sat in front, reins loose in his hands, eyes fixed on the road ahead. He hadn't said a word since they'd left. Emma broke the silence first. What's your name? Clara. I'm Emma. That's Grace. We're twins. I can see that. Grace leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Do you like horses? I suppose I do. Good. Daddy has lots of horses, and cows, and chickens, but mostly cows. Emma nodded seriously. The ranch is real big. Daddy works hard every day. Sometimes he forgets to eat dinner. That's not good for him, Clara said softly. That's what Mama used to say. Grace's voice was quieter now. Before she went to live with the angels. Clara's chest tightened. She looked at the 2 small faces, dusty and sunburned with hair that hadn't been properly braided in days. I'm sorry about your mama. Emma shrugged. It's okay. She's been gone a long time. 2 whole years. Daddy says she's watching us from heaven. I'm sure she is. Grace studied Clara's face. Do you have a mama? Clara paused. I do, but she's far away now. Do you miss her? The question cut deeper than it should have. Sometimes, Clara said, but not in the way you might think. Emma nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense. The wagon hit a rut, jostling them all. Clara grabbed the bench to steady herself. Sam's voice cut through the air for the first time. "Hold tight back there. Road gets rough ahead." His tone was flat, matter-of-fact, not unkind, but not warm either. Clara wondered what she'd gotten herself into. The Hollister Ranch came into view as the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon. The sky burned orange and pink, the heat finally starting to ease. It was larger than Clara had expected. A sturdy house with a wide porch. A barn that listed slightly to one side. Fences stretching into the distance, some sagging, some broken. A vegetable garden choked with weeds. Laundry hanging limp on a line, bone-dry and forgotten. It was a place that had once been cared for, but not anymore. Sam pulled the wagon to a stop near the house and climbed down without a word. The twins scrambled after him, pulling Clara along. "Come on!" Emma tugged her hand. "We'll show you everything." Sam walked to the porch, opened the door, and stepped inside. Clara hesitated on the threshold. "Well?" Sam looked back at her. "You coming in or not?" She nodded and stepped through the doorway. Inside the house was dim and quiet. Dust floated in the shafts of light slipping through the windows. Dishes were stacked in the basin. A shirt lay draped over a chair. The floor was swept, but only barely. Sam gestured toward a narrow hallway. "Second door on the left. You can stay there." "Thank you." He didn't respond. Just turned and walked toward the kitchen, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. Grace tugged Clara's skirt. "Come see our room first." The girls led her down the hall, chattering excitedly. Their room was small but tidy, 2 narrow beds with faded quilts, a wooden doll on one pillow, a cracked mirror on the wall. "This is where we sleep," Emma said proudly. "It's very nice." Grace climbed onto her bed and patted the space beside her. "Will you sit with us?" Clara sat. The mattress creaked beneath her weight, and she felt a flash of embarrassment, but the twins didn't seem to notice. They nestled close, one on each side. "Tell us a story," Emma said. "I don't know many stories." "That's okay," Grace said. "Just make one up." So Clara did. She told them about a girl who lived in a valley where the flowers grew taller than trees, and every star in the sky had a name. She told them about a wise owl who helped lost children find their way home. She told them about a brave little mouse who stood up to a mean old cat. The girls listened with wide eyes, their breathing growing slower, their heads growing heavy against her arms. Clara glanced up and froze. Sam stood in the doorway, silent, watching. Their eyes met for just a moment. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his gaze, something she couldn't quite name. Then he turned and walked away, his footsteps fading down the hall. Clara looked down at the sleeping twins, their small hands still clutching her dress. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, didn't know if she'd be sent away once the novelty wore off. But for tonight, just for tonight, she wasn't alone. And that was more than she'd had in a very long time. Clara woke before dawn. The room was still dark, the air already warm. She lay there for a moment, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch, a rooster crowing somewhere distant, cattle lowing in the pasture, the creak of old wood settling. Then she remembered where she was. She dressed quickly in the dim light, her fingers fumbling with buttons. Her one good dress was wrinkled from the journey, but it would have to do. She smoothed her hair back, twisted it into a simple bun, and slipped out of her room. The house was quiet. She moved through the hallway, past the twins' closed door, into the kitchen. The mess was worse than she'd noticed the night before. Crusted plates stacked high. A cold stove thick with grease. A basket of mending overflowing in the corner. Dust on every surface. Clara couldn't just stand there. She never could. She found matches, lit the stove, filled the basin with water from the pump, heated it, and began to scrub. By the time the sun crept above the horizon, the dishes were clean, the table was wiped, the floor was swept, the stove gleamed. Clara was elbow-deep in the mending basket when she heard footsteps behind her. "What are you doing?" She turned. Sam stood in the doorway, hat already on, shirt half tucked. His expression was hard to read. "I couldn't sleep," Clara said. "Figured I'd make myself useful." Sam's eyes swept the kitchen. He said nothing. Clara's stomach tightened. "I'm sorry. I should have asked first. I didn't mean to overstep." "You cleaned the whole kitchen?" "Yes." "Before sunrise?" "Yes." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the stove, picked up the coffee pot, and found it full. Hot. Ready. He poured himself a cup and took a long drink. "Ain't had coffee waiting for me since Margaret passed." Clara didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Sam set down the cup. "You planning to do this every morning?" "If you'll let me stay." He looked at her then, really looked at her. His dark eyes were steady searching. "I already said you could stay. People change their minds. I don't." The words hung between them. Clara felt her cheeks flush. Before she could respond, small footsteps thundered down the hallway. "Clara!" Emma burst into the kitchen, Grace right behind her. "You're still here. Did you think I'd leave?" "Sometimes people leave," Grace said quietly. "Miss Patterson left, and Mrs. Henley, and—" "Grace." Sam's voice was firm but gentle. "That's enough." Clara knelt down so she was eye level with the girls. "I'm not leaving, not unless your daddy tells me to." Emma's face lit up. "Daddy won't tell you to leave. He likes you." "Emma." Sam's voice carried a warning. "What? It's true. You smiled last night when she was telling us stories. I saw you." Sam's jaw tightened. He grabbed his hat from the hook. "I've got work to do. You girls behave." "Can Clara make us breakfast?" Grace asked. Sam paused at the door. He looked at Clara. "Can you cook?" "Yes." "Then I reckon she can make you breakfast." He walked out without another word. Emma tugged Clara's sleeve. "He's not very good at talking. Mama always said he keeps his feelings in a locked box." "That sounds about right," Clara said softly. "But you can unlock it," Grace said. "We picked you 'cause we knew you could." Clara's throat tightened. She didn't know what these little girls saw in her, didn't know why they'd chosen her over all those pretty mail-order brides, but she wasn't going to let them down. "All right," she said, straightening up. "Who wants flapjacks?" The twins cheered. Clara found flour eggs, a precious bit of butter. She worked quickly mixing batter, heating the pan. The girls sat at the table swinging their legs, watching her every move. "Mama used to make flapjacks," Emma said. "But hers were flat. Yours are fluffy." "That's the secret," Clara said. "You don't stir too much, just enough." "Will you teach us?" "If you want." Grace nodded solemnly. "We want." Clara set plates in front of them. The girls ate like they hadn't had a proper breakfast in months. Maybe they hadn't. "Clara!" Grace's voice was muffled by flapjacks. "Yes. Are you going to be our new mama?" Clara's hand froze over the stove. "I don't know," she said honestly. I'm just here to help." Emma shook her head. "That's what Miss Patterson said. Then she left after 3 days 'cause Daddy wouldn't talk to her." "And Mrs. Henley left 'cause she said the ranch was too much work," Grace added. "How many people have come to help?" The twins looked at each other. 7, Emma said. 8, if you count the one who didn't even stay for dinner, Grace corrected. 8 women. All of them had left. Clara understood then. She understood why Sam barely spoke, why the ranch was falling apart, why these 2 little girls had run to a stranger at a train station and grabbed her hands like she was their last hope. Because maybe she was. "I'm not like them," Clara said. "I don't leave." Emma's eyes were bright. "Promise?" "Promise." The word felt heavy, felt real, felt like something Clara couldn't take back. She didn't want to take it back. The morning passed in a blur of work. Clara washed clothes and hung them on the line. She pulled weeds from the vegetable garden until her back ached. She swept the porch beat, the rug scrubbed the front windows until they actually let light through. The twins followed her everywhere, chattering constantly, helping in their clumsy, earnest way. "You work harder than anybody," Emma observed, watching Clara wrestle with a particularly stubborn weed. "Hard work is all I know. Daddy works hard too, but he forgets things, like dinner, and washing his shirts, and sleeping." Clara glanced toward the barn, where Sam had disappeared hours ago. "He's doing this alone." "Hank helps," Grace said. "He's Daddy's friend. He works here sometimes." "But mostly Daddy does everything," Emma added. "He says real men don't complain." Clara pulled the weed free with a grunt. "Real men also need help sometimes. That's what Mama used to say." Clara was starting to understand why Margaret Hollister's ghost hung so heavy over this place. Midday, a wagon rattled up the road. Clara straightened, shading her eyes against the sun. Her stomach dropped when she recognized the green silk dress. Dorothy Price. The wagon stopped near the porch. Dorothy descended with practiced grace, her parasol snapping open. "Girls!" Her smile was tight. "Where's your father?" "In the barn," Emma said. Dorothy's gaze slid to Clara. The smile didn't falter, but her eyes went cold. "And you're still here? How persistent." Clara wiped her hands on her apron. "Mrs. Price." "Miss Price. I'm widowed." Dorothy tilted her head. "Like you, I understand, though I imagine our circumstances are quite different." "I imagine they are." Dorothy moved closer. Her perfume was overwhelming in the heat. "Let me be direct, Mrs. Brennan. Samuel Hollister has been widowed for 2 years. In that time, every respectable woman in this county has tried to help him. Every single one has failed. Do you know why? No. Because Samuel doesn't want help. He wants to be left alone with his grief. And the last thing those poor girls need is another woman who'll disappear in a week." Clara met her eyes. "I'm not planning to disappear." "They never are." Dorothy's voice dripped with pity. "But I've known Samuel since we were children. I know what he needs, and I promise you it isn't a woman who looks like she's been sampling too many biscuits." The words hit their mark. Clara felt her face burn. "Daddy doesn't care what people look like," Grace said loudly. "He says what matters is what's inside." Dorothy's smile flickered. "Of course he does, sweetheart. And what's inside Mrs. Brennan, I wonder, besides all those flapjacks?" "That's enough!" Sam's voice cut through the air. He'd emerged from the barn without any of them noticing. Dorothy turned, her expression shifting instantly to sweetness. "Samuel, I was just coming to check on you. Mrs. Henderson made her famous cobbler, and I thought, appreciate it, but we're fine." "The girls must be hungry. I could stay and help with lunch." "Clara's got it handled." Dorothy's smile tightened. "Clara, of course. Your new... what is she exactly? Cook-made charity case?" "Guest." "Guest." Dorothy laughed lightly. "Samuel, half the town is talking. They're saying you've lost your mind, that you picked up some stranger from the station and brought her home like a stray dog. Is that the example you want to set for your daughters? What I do on my ranch ain't the town's business. It's my business. I care about you, Samuel. I've cared about you for years. And I refuse to stand by while you make a fool of yourself over some... She gestured at Clara, unable to find words cutting enough. Sam stepped forward. His shadow fell over Dorothy. "You need to leave now. Samuel. Now." Dorothy's face flushed red. She looked at Clara with pure hatred. Then she gathered her skirts, climbed back into her wagon, and snapped the reins. The wagon rattled away, leaving a cloud of dust. Emma tugged Sam's sleeve. "I don't like her, Daddy." "I know. She's mean to Clara." "I know." Sam looked at Clara. "You all right?" Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. Sam held her gaze for a moment. Then he turned back toward the barn. "Supper's at 6, he said over his shoulder. "If you're still set on cooking." "I am." "Good." He disappeared into the barn. Clara stood there, her heart pounding her cheeks, still burning from Dorothy's words. But beneath the humiliation, something else flickered. Sam had defended her. In front of Dorothy Price, in front of his daughters. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Clara," Grace tugged her hand. "Why are you smiling?" "I don't know," Clara said. "I honestly don't know." Supper that night was simple. Stew from what Clara found in the pantry, biscuits that rose light, and golden fresh butter that the twins slathered on everything. Sam ate in silence, but Clara noticed things. He finished everything on his plate. He reached for seconds without being asked. He looked at her twice when he thought she wasn't watching. "This is the best stew ever," Emma announced. "Better than Mrs. Henley's," Grace agreed. Hers was watery. "Girls," Sam's voice was mild, "don't speak ill." "But it's true, Daddy." Sam's lips twitched, just barely, but Clara saw it. After supper, the twins begged Clara to braid their hair. She sat on the porch, the girls at her feet, her fingers working through tangles that hadn't been properly combed in days. Sam sat in the rocking chair nearby, whittling something small. He didn't speak. Neither did Clara. But the silence between them was different now, less heavy, almost comfortable. "Clara." Grace's voice was sleepy. "Yes? I'm glad you came." "Me too," Emma murmured. Clara's hands stilled in their hair. Her throat tightened. "I'm glad too." Sam's knife paused against the wood. He didn't look up, but Clara felt his attention shift. "All right, girls." Clara tied off the last braid. "Time for bed. Will you tell us a story? Maybe a short one." She took them inside, tucked them in, told them about a princess who lived in a tower made of wildflowers. By the time she finished, both girls were asleep. She stood in the doorway for a moment, watching them breathe. "You're good with them." Clara jumped. Sam stood behind her in the hallway, his voice low. "They're easy to be good with." "No, they're not. They're stubborn and loud, and they ask too many questions." He paused. "But you don't seem to mind." "I don't." Sam was quiet. In the dim light, Clara couldn't read his expression. "Margaret was good with them too," he said finally. "Natural. Like breathing. After she died, I tried, but I couldn't. I didn't know how to." His voice trailed off. "You're doing fine," Clara said softly. "I'm not. The ranch is falling apart. The girls need things I can't give them. I've been drowning for 2 years and pretending I'm not." Clara didn't know what to say, so she said the truth. "Then stop pretending." Sam looked at her. His eyes were dark, unreadable. "Why did you come here?" he asked. "To Texas. To Dusty Creek." "Why?" "I didn't have a choice. My family. They didn't want me anymore." "Why?" Clara's jaw tightened. "Because I'm fat. Because my husband died and they blamed me. Because I've never been what anyone wanted me to be." The words hung in the air between them. Sam nodded slowly. "My wife was small, delicate. Prettiest woman in 3 counties. Everybody said I was lucky to have her." Clara waited. "She was sick for a long time before she died. I watched her fade away and couldn't do a damn thing about it. And when she was gone, everybody said I should find another pretty wife. Another delicate woman to fill her place." He shook his head. "But pretty don't keep a ranch running. Delicate don't comfort 2 little girls who cry every night for their mama." "What does—" Sam met her eyes. "Strength. The kind you don't find in a fancy dress or a silk parasol. The kind that shows up at dawn and works until dusk without complaining. The kind that makes 2 little girls smile for the first time in months." Clara's heart was pounding. "I ain't good with words," Sam said. "But I know what I see, And I see someone worth more than this whole town put together." He turned and walked down the hallway before she could respond. Clara stood there in the dark, her hands trembling, her eyes burning. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not her parents, not Thomas, not a single soul in her entire 25 years of living. "You're worth more than this whole town put together." She pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her heart beat hard and fast. Maybe coming to Texas wasn't a mistake after all. The next few days blurred together. Clara fell into a rhythm. Up before dawn. Coffee ready when Sam came in from the barn. Breakfast for the girls. Chores that never seemed to end. Supper on the table by 6. She fixed the garden. She mended the fences nearest the house. She cleaned every room until the whole place smelled like soap and lemons. And slowly, the ranch began to feel less like a place of grief and more like a home. On the 4th day, an old cowboy named Hank appeared. He was weathered and gray with a handlebar mustache and a laugh that came from deep in his belly. He'd worked for Sam's father, and he watched Clara haul water from the well with raised eyebrows. "Well now," he said, "Sam didn't mention you were part mule." Clara wiped her forehead with her sleeve. "Excuse me. The way you work ain't natural." He grinned. "I like it." "Thank you. I think." Hank fell into step beside her as she walked toward the house. "Listen, I've known Sam Hollister since he was in diapers. That man's been closed off tighter than a drum since Margaret passed. But the last few days something's different." "Different how?" "He whistled yesterday." Clara stopped. "Whistled? Ain't heard him whistle in 2 years." Hank's eyes crinkled. "Don't know what you're doing, ma'am, but keep doing it." He tipped his hat and ambled off toward the barn. Clara stood there, the water bucket heavy in her hands, a strange warmth spreading through her chest. That afternoon, Dorothy Price returned, but this time she wasn't alone. A fancy carriage pulled up to the ranch and 4 women emerged. Clara recognized them from the train station, the same judgmental faces, the same cold stares. Dorothy led them like a general leading troops. "Mrs. Brennan," her smile was poison sweet. "I've brought some ladies from the church auxiliary. We're here to offer guidance." Clara set down her mending. "Guidance. For the household, the children, the arrangement." Dorothy's eyes swept over Clara's flower-dusted dress. "We're concerned." "Concerned about what?" One of the other women stepped forward. "About propriety, Mrs. Brennan. An unmarried woman living under the same roof as a widower. Surely you understand how this appears." "I'm helping with the children." "Are you—" Dorothy's voice dripped with false concern. "Or are you taking advantage of a grieving man's vulnerability?" Clara's hands clenched. "That's not what's happening." "Isn't it? You arrived with nothing, no references, no prospects, and suddenly you've installed yourself in his home, cooking his meals, caring for his children." Dorothy shook her head. "Some might call that opportunism. Some might call it kindness." "Kindness." Dorothy laughed. "Dear Mrs. Brennan, no one gives anything for free. You want something. Perhaps his ranch. Perhaps his name. Perhaps—" "That's enough." Everyone turned. Sam stood at the corner of the house. His face was thunderous. "Samuel." Dorothy's voice softened. "We're only trying to help. You're trying to run off the only person who's helped my daughters smile in 2 years." Sam walked forward, each step deliberate. "You want to help leave us be. The church auxiliary can mind their own business." Sam's voice was hard as iron. "Clara stays. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me." Dorothy's face flushed. "You'll regret this, Samuel. When she shows her true colors. Get off my land." Silence. Dorothy's lips pressed into a thin line. She gathered her skirts and marched back to the carriage, the other women scurrying after her. The carriage rattled away. Sam stood there breathing hard. Clara walked up beside him. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. They'll talk. Let them talk. They'll make your life difficult. Sam turned to look at her. His eyes were fierce. My life was already difficult. Then you came. He paused. You make it less difficult. Clara didn't know how to respond, so she did the only thing she could think of. She reached out and touched his arm. Just briefly. Just enough. Thank you, Sam. His jaw tightened. He nodded once. Then he walked back toward the barn without another word. That night, Clara lay awake in her small room staring at the ceiling. Something was changing. She could feel it. In the way Sam looked at her. In the way the twins clung to her. In the way this rundown ranch was starting to feel like the home she'd never had. But she knew better than to hope. Hope had always led to disappointment. To rejection. To standing alone in the cold while doors slammed behind her. She turned onto her side and closed her eyes. Don't hope, she told herself. Just work, just survive, that's all you know how to do. But somewhere deep inside, a small flame flickered, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't put it out. The twins burst into her room at first light. Clara, Clara, wake up. She sat up, heart pounding. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Emma was bouncing on her toes. Daddy said we can go to town today for supplies and you're coming with us. Clara's stomach dropped. Town. It'll be fun. Grace grabbed her hand. Daddy said you need new boots. Yours have holes. Clara looked down at her worn boots by the door. He'd noticed. Of course he'd noticed. I don't know if town is a good idea. Why not? Because they'll stare. Because they'll whisper. Because Dorothy will be there waiting to humiliate me again. But she couldn't say any of that. I'll come, she said finally. The twins cheered. An hour later, Clara sat in the wagon next to Sam, the twins in the back, as they rattled toward Dusty Creek. Her hands were clasped tight in her lap. Her heart was racing. Breathe, Sam said quietly. What? You're not breathing. Breathe. Clara forced air into her lungs. They can't hurt you, Sam said. They're just words. Words hurt plenty. I know. He glanced at her. But you're not facing them alone this time. The words settled over her like a blanket. You're not alone. The town appeared ahead. Clara's stomach clenched. Sam stopped the wagon outside the general store. The street was busy Saturday shopping families, ranchers. Heads turned as they climbed down. The whispers started immediately. That's her. The fat one from the station. She's still there. Living with him. Shameful. Absolutely shameful. Clara kept her eyes forward. Her hands trembled. Sam placed his hand on her back. Just briefly. Just enough. Stay close, he murmured. They walked into the general store. The twins ran ahead, exclaiming over candy jars and fabric bolts. Clara moved to the boot section, trying to disappear. Well, well, Dorothy's voice. Clara turned. Dorothy stood at the counter, a basket of goods before her, surrounded by 3 other women. Look who's come to town. Dorothy's smile was sharp. Brave of you, Mrs. Brennan. Or desperate. Just shopping, Miss Price. Are you? Because it looks to me like you're parading yourself around trying to make this arrangement seem respectable. Dorothy shook her head. It's not respectable, dear. It's scandalous, and everyone knows it. The other women murmured agreement. Clara's face burned. She wanted to run, wanted to hide in the wagon and never come out. Mrs. Brennan. Sam's voice. Calm, steady. He walked up beside her, boots heavy on the wooden floor. He looked at Dorothy. Is there a problem? No problem, Samuel. I was just explaining to Mrs. Brennan how things work in this town. Is that right? Sam's voice didn't change. Let me explain something too. Clara Brennan is under my protection. Any disrespect to her is disrespect to me. Are we clear? Silence. Dorothy's face flushed red. Samuel, Are we clear? The words rang through the store. Everyone stared. Dorothy swallowed hard. Perfectly clear. Good. Sam turned to Clara. Find your boots. Clara shook her head. Her voice lost somewhere in her chest. Come on then. I'll help you look. He guided her away from Dorothy, away from the staring eyes toward the back of the store where the boots were displayed. Try these. He pulled a pair off the shelf. Brown leather, sturdy but not ugly. Should fit. Clara took them with trembling hands. You didn't have to do that. I know. They'll hate me more now. Maybe. Sam looked at her steadily. But they won't say it to your face. Not anymore. Clara slipped on the boots. They fit perfectly. How did you know my size? Sam's ears went slightly red. I notice things. Clara looked up at him. This rough, quiet, impossible man who had defended her twice now, who noticed her worn boots, who told her she was worth more than the whole town. Thank you, Sam. Stop thanking me. His voice was gruff. Just wear the damn boots. Clara almost smiled. Almost. The ride home was quiet. The twins fell asleep in the back, exhausted from their adventure. Clara sat beside Sam, her new boots solid on her feet, the sun setting behind them. I meant what I said, Sam said suddenly. About what? About you being under my protection. He kept his eyes on the road. That wasn't just for show. I know. Do you... Clara turned to look at him. His profile was sharp against the fading light. Why are you doing this, Sam? Why are you defending me? Fighting for me? I'm nobody. A stranger. You don't owe me anything. Sam was quiet for a long moment. My daughters chose you, he said finally. And they don't choose wrong. I believe that. And you. Sam's hands tightened on the reins. I'm starting to believe it too. The words hung between them as the wagon rolled toward home. The ranch appeared in the distance, the house glowing warm in the last light. Clara looked at it and felt something shift inside her. Something dangerous. Something like hope. 2 weeks passed like a dream Clara was afraid to wake from. She fell into the rhythm of the ranch like she'd been born to it. Up before dawn. Coffee ready. Breakfast warm. The twins braided and fed and laughing. Sam nodding at her across the table, his dark eyes holding hers a moment longer each day. It was the closest thing to happiness Clara had ever known. But happiness, she'd learned, never lasted. The first sign came on a Tuesday morning. Sam walked in from the barn, his face troubled. Storm's coming. Clara looked up from the biscuit dough. Rain? More than rain. Hank says he feels it in his bones. Big one. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. Emma appeared in the doorway. I like storms. This ain't a storm for liking, Sam said. This is a storm for preparing. The day passed in a blur of activity. Sam and Hank moved the cattle to the north pasture closer to shelter. Clara secured the chicken coop, tied down everything loose, filled every bucket and barrel with water. The twins followed her everywhere, unusually quiet. Clara. Grace tugged her sleeve. Are you scared? A little, but scared isn't bad. Scared keeps you careful. Daddy says brave people get scared too. Your daddy's right. By evening, the air had changed. Heavy. Thick. The kind of heat that pressed down on your chest and made breathing feel like work. Sam came in for supper, his shirt soaked with sweat. It's close. Maybe midnight. Maybe sooner. Should we sleep in the cellar? Not yet. I'll keep watch. He looked at Clara. You get the girls to bed. Stay close to them. Clara nodded. After supper, she tucked the twins into their beds. They were restless, tossing and turning the heat, making sleep impossible. Tell us a story, Emma begged. So Clara did. She told them about a brave little bird who flew through the biggest storm in the world to find her family. She made her voice soft and steady, pushing down her own fear. By the time she finished, both girls were asleep. Clara sat in the chair by their bed watching them breathe. She wouldn't sleep tonight. She knew it. The first thunder rolled across the sky around 11. Clara jumped to her feet. The sound was deep rumbling, like the earth itself was growling. Sam appeared in the doorway. "It's starting. Stay inside." "Where are you going?" "The barn. Some of the horses are spooked. Need to calm them before they hurt themselves." "Sam?" "Stay inside, Clara. Promise me." His eyes were fierce in the dim light. "I promise." He nodded once and disappeared into the darkness. Clara sat back down, her heart pounding. The thunder grew louder. Lightning flashed, turning the room white for half a second. The twins stirred, but didn't wake. Then the rain came. Not a gentle rain, not even a hard rain. This was a wall of water slamming against the house like fists. The wind screamed, tearing at the roof, rattling the windows. Clara had never heard anything like it. She pressed herself back against the wall, fighting the urge to run. She'd promised Sam. She'd stay inside. She'd keep the girls safe. An hour passed. Maybe 2. Clara lost track of time. The storm didn't let up. If anything, it grew worse. Then she heard it. A crash. Splintering wood. A sound that didn't belong to the storm. Clara ran to the window and peered out into the darkness. Lightning flashed and she saw it. The barn door had torn off its hinges. Horses were running loose in the chaos. And Sam was nowhere in sight. Clara's blood went cold. "Stay here," she whispered to the sleeping twins. "Please stay here." She grabbed her shawl, wrapped it tight around her shoulders, and ran out into the storm. The rain hit her like a physical blow. She could barely see, barely breathe. The wind tore at her clothes. Her hair tried to knock her off her feet. "Sam!" she screamed. "Sam!" Lightning flashed. She saw the barn, half its roof torn away. She saw horses running, their eyes wild with terror. She saw Sam lying on the ground. Clara ran. She fell twice, her knees slamming into mud, but she kept going. When she reached him, he was struggling to sit up, his hand pressed against his head. Blood. "Sam, what happened?" "Beam fell." His voice was thick. "Hit my head. I'm fine." "You're bleeding." "I'm fine." He tried to stand, staggered, nearly fell again. Clara caught him. His weight was enormous, nearly pulling her down, but she braced herself and held on. "Lean on me." "Clara." "Lean on me, Sam, now." He didn't argue. His arm came around her shoulders, and together they stumbled toward the house. The twins met them at the door, wide-eyed and crying. "Daddy!" Emma screamed. "Daddy, you're hurt." "I'm all right, baby girl." Sam's voice was weak. "Just a bump." Clara guided him to a chair. "Grace, get me clean water. Emma, find bandages. Quickly." The girls ran. Clara knelt in front of Sam, tilting his head toward the light. The cut was deep, still bleeding. His eyes were unfocused. "How many fingers?" She held up 3. 3. Maybe 4. "Things are a little blurry." "That's not good. I've had worse." "Sam." Her voice cracked. "This is serious." His hand came up, covered hers. His grip was weak, but his eyes found hers. "You came out in the storm. You were hurt. You promised to stay inside. You were hurt." Clara repeated, her voice breaking. "Did you think I'd just sit there while you bled to death in the mud?" Sam stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. "Nobody's ever—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Margaret would have stayed inside, done what I told her. I'm not Margaret." "No." His voice was rough. "You're not." The twins rushed back with water and bandages. Clara cleaned the wound, wrapped it tight. Her hands were steady, even though her heart was racing. The storm raged on outside, but inside something had changed. Sam didn't let go of her hand. Morning came gray and quiet. The storm had passed, leaving destruction in its wake. Clara stepped onto the porch and surveyed the damage. Half the barn roof was gone. Fences were down. The vegetable garden she'd worked so hard on was flooded and ruined. But they were alive. All of them. Clara. She turned. Grace stood in the doorway, her small face pale. Is Daddy going to be okay? Clara knelt down and took the girl's hands. Your daddy is strong. He just needs rest. You saved him. I helped him. That's what family does. Grace's eyes widened. Family? Clara's heart stuttered. She hadn't meant to say that. It had just slipped out. I didn't mean... You said family. Emma appeared beside her sister. Does that mean you're staying forever? Clara looked at their faces, these two little girls who had chosen her from a crowd of strangers, who had held her hands and called her perfect, who had given her something she'd never had before. I want to stay, Clara said softly. If your daddy will have me. He will, Grace said with absolute certainty. How do you know? Emma grinned. Because he looks at you the way he used to look at Mama. Clara's breath caught. Before she could respond, Hank's voice rang out from the yard. Hello the house, everybody alive in there. Clara stood and walked to the edge of the porch. Hank was picking his way through the debris, his face creased with worry. We're alive. Sam's hurt, but he's resting. Hank's eyes widened. Hurt? How? Beam fell on his head. I bandaged it, but he needs a doctor. Hank nodded grimly. I'll ride into town. Doc Morgan owes me a favor. He paused, studying Clara. You look like you went 10 rounds with that storm yourself. Clara looked down at her mud-caked dress, her ruined shawl. I found Sam in the yard. Helped him inside. Hank was quiet for a long moment. Then he tipped his hat. Margaret couldn't have done that. Wouldn't have done that. He held her gaze. You're something else, Mrs. Brennan. He mounted his horse and rode toward town. Clara stood on the porch, the twins pressed close to her sides, and watched him go. Doc Morgan arrived 2 hours later. He was a weathered man with kind eyes and gentle hands. He examined Sam thoroughly, while Clara waited in the kitchen, her stomach in knots. When he finally emerged, his expression was serious. He's got a concussion, needs rest, no work for at least a week. A week? Clara's voice rose. The ranch. The ranch can wait. His brain can't. Doc Morgan studied her. You're the one who found him? Yes. Dragged him inside. More like we stumbled together. Doc Morgan smiled slightly. Sam Hollister weighs 220 pounds. You dragged 220 pounds through a storm. Clara shrugged uncomfortable. I did what needed doing. The doctor picked up his bag. Keep him in bed. No arguments. I'll be back in 3 days to check on him. He walked to the door, then paused. Mrs. Brennan. Yes. Sam's a stubborn fool, always has been, but he's not stupid. Doc Morgan's eyes were knowing. He knows what you did for him, and he knows what you are. What am I? Something worth keeping. He tipped his hat and walked out. Clara stood in the kitchen, her heart pounding, and tried to remember how to breathe. Sam refused to stay in bed. By afternoon, he was up and moving despite Clara's protests. You have a concussion. I have a ranch that's falling apart. It can wait. It can't. Sam reached for his hat. The cattle need checking. The fences need... I'll do it. Sam stopped, turned. What? I'll check the cattle. I'll assess the fences. I'll make a list of everything that needs fixing. Clara crossed her arms. You're going to rest. You can't... Watch me. They stared at each other. Sam's jaw was tight. His eyes were fierce. Then slowly he sat back down. You're the stubbornest woman I've ever met. Good. Now drink your water and don't move until I get back. She walked out before he could argue. The damage was worse than she'd thought. 3 sections of fence were completely down. A dozen cattle had wandered into the creek bed. The chicken coop had lost half its roof. Clara worked until her arms ached and her back screamed for mercy. She rounded up the cattle, herding them back to the pasture. She gathered fallen fence posts, stacking them for repair. She counted chickens, finding 2 missing and 1 dead. By the time she walked back to the house, the sun was setting and she could barely stand. Sam was waiting on the porch. 12 hours, he said. You've been gone 12 hours. Lot of damage. You look like death. Feel like it too. Clara climbed the porch steps. Her legs were shaking. But the cattle are secured. The chicken coop needs new boards, and we lost 3 sections of fence. I made a list. She handed him a piece of paper, sweat-stained and muddy. Sam looked at it, looked at her. His expression was unreadable. You did all this, alone. Hank's still in town. Someone had to. Sam was quiet for a long moment. Margaret used to tell me I was too hard, he said finally. That I expected too much from people, from myself. He looked at Clara, his eyes dark and deep. But you're just like me. You work until you break because you don't know any other way. Is that bad? No. His voice was rough. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Clara's heart stopped. Sam reached out. His hand cupped her face, rough and gentle at the same time. I don't deserve you, he said. But God help me, I want you to stay. Sam, not as a guest, not as a hired hand, as something more. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I'm not good with words, never have been, but when I look at you I see, Daddy, Clara. The twins burst onto the porch, shattering the moment. We made dinner, Emma announced proudly. All by ourselves, Grace added. Sam's hand dropped. Clara stepped back, her face burning. What did you make? Sam asked, his voice carefully neutral. Bread and jam. That's not really dinner, girls. It is if you eat enough of it. Sam's lips twitched. He looked at Clara. Seems we're having bread and jam. Seems so. They walked inside together, the twins chattering between them. Clara's heart was still racing. Sam's words echoed in her head. I want you to stay. As something more. Had he meant what she thought he meant? And if he had, what happened next? Late that night, Clara sat on the porch, unable to sleep. The air was cool for the first time in weeks. The storm had broken the heat, leaving behind something fresh and new. The door creaked behind her. Can't sleep either. Sam lowered himself into the chair beside her. His bandage gleamed white in the moonlight. Too much to think about, Clara admitted. Yeah. They sat in silence for a long moment. Crickets chirped. An owl hooted somewhere in the distance. What I said earlier, Sam began. You don't have to explain. Yes, I do. He turned to face her. I've been alone for 2 years. Told myself that was how it had to be. That loving someone once was enough for one lifetime. That I'd raise my girls and work my ranch and never ask for anything more. Clara waited. Then you came. Sam's voice was rough. And everything I told myself fell apart. You're not what I expected, not what anyone expected, but you're exactly what I needed. Sam, let me finish. He took her hand. His grip was firm, steady. I know what people say about you. I know how they look at you. And I know that every cruel word they've ever spoken is burned into your heart like a brand. Clara's eyes burned. She looked away. But here's what I see. Sam's other hand turned her face back toward him. I see a woman who works harder than any man I know, who makes my daughters laugh for the first time in years, who ran into a storm to save my life when anyone else would have stayed safe inside. A tear slipped down Clara's cheek. I see someone strong, Sam continued. Someone brave. Someone who deserves to be loved for exactly who she is, not in spite of it. Clara couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. I'm asking you, Clara. Sam's voice dropped low. Will you stay? Will you let me try to be worthy of you?" Clara looked at him. This rough, quiet, impossible man who had defended her when no one else would. Who had seen her value when she couldn't see it herself. Who was offering her something she'd never dared to dream of. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll stay." Sam pulled her into his arms. Clara pressed her face against his chest, feeling his heart beat strong and steady beneath her cheek. His arms wrapped around her solid and warm and real. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. For the first time, she felt home. The next morning, Clara woke to Emma's voice shouting from outside. "Clara! Clara! Come quick!" Clara threw on her dress and ran to the porch. Emma was pointing toward the road. A wagon was approaching, kicking up dust. And sitting in that wagon were two figures Clara had never expected to see again. Her parents. Clara's blood ran cold. "Who's that?" Sam appeared beside her, his hand coming to rest on her back. Clara couldn't answer. Her mother's voice rang out across the yard. "There you are, Clara Ruth. We've come to take you home." Clara couldn't move. Her feet were rooted to the porch, her body frozen in place. The wagon rolled to a stop, and her mother climbed down, brushing dust from her dress like she was arriving at a church social. Her father followed, his face hard as stone. "Clara Ruth." Her mother's voice was sharp. "Did you hear me? We've come to take you home." Sam stepped forward, placing himself slightly between Clara and her parents. "And you are—" "We're her parents." Her mother's eyes swept over Sam dismissively. "Not that it's any of your concern. Seeing as she's standing on my property, I reckon it is my concern." Clara finally found her voice. "Why are you here?" Her mother's expression flickered. "We received a letter from a Miss Dorothy Price. She informed us of your situation." Clara's blood went cold. Dorothy. Of course it was Dorothy. "What situation would that be?" Sam asked, his voice dangerously calm. "Living in sin with a strange man, corrupting his children, making a spectacle of herself across the entire territory." Her mother's lip curled, as if we hadn't suffered enough embarrassment already. "Mama." "Don't you mama me." Her mother stepped closer. "Do you have any idea what people are saying? They're saying our daughter is a kept woman, a harlot, that she threw herself at a widower and wormed her way into his home. That's not true. Isn't it?" Her father spoke for the first time. His voice was flat cold. "You were sent to find honest work. Instead, you're living with a man who isn't your husband. How else should we interpret this?" The twins appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. "Daddy." Emma's voice was small. "Who are those people?" Clara's mother looked at the girls and laughed. "Oh, this is rich. She's even got the children calling her, 'That's enough.'" Sam's voice cut through the air like a blade. He stepped fully in front of Clara, his body shielding her. "You need to leave." "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Sam's shoulders were squared, his stance wide. "You don't get to come onto my land and insult the woman who saved my life. Who cared for my daughters when I couldn't? Who works harder than any person I've ever met?" Clara's mother sputtered. "She's our daughter." "Then you should have treated her like one." Silence fell. Clara's father stepped forward, his face red. "Now listen here." "No. You listen." Sam's voice was quiet but fierce. "You threw her out like garbage, put her on a train full of strangers, didn't care where she ended up or what happened to her. And now you show up pretending you have any right to her. We have every right. You have nothing." Sam's hands clenched at his sides. "Clara isn't your property. She isn't your burden. She's a grown woman who made a choice to be here, and she's staying." Clara's mother turned to her daughter, eyes blazing. "Clara Ruth, get in the wagon. Now!" Clara's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her whole life she'd obeyed. She'd kept her head down, done what she was told, swallowed her words until they choked her. Not anymore. "No." The word came out stronger than she expected. Her mother's face went white. "What did you say?" "I said no." Clara stepped out from behind Sam, standing beside him. "I'm not coming with you. I'm not going back to Missouri. I'm staying here." "You ungrateful." "Ungrateful." Clara's voice rose. "You threw me out of your house, told me I was a burden, blamed me for Thomas's death when I nursed him for 3 weeks without sleeping. You put me on a train and told me never to come back." "We were doing what was best." "For who? For you, because it certainly wasn't for me." Clara was shaking now, but she didn't stop. "Do you know what happened when I got off that train? People laughed at me, called me names, said I was too fat to love, too ugly to want. And you know who defended me, not you, him." She pointed at Sam. "A stranger. A man who had never met me before. He stood up for me when my own parents threw me away like trash." Her mother's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Her father stepped forward. "Clara, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. For the first time in my life." Clara's voice cracked, but she held her ground. "I'm done being ashamed of who I am. Done apologizing for taking up space. Done trying to be small enough for people who will never love me anyway." Tears were streaming down her face now, but she didn't wipe them away. "I found a place here. People who care about me. Children who chose me when no one else would. And a man who—" She stopped, looked at Sam. His eyes were dark and steady on hers. "A man who makes me feel like I'm enough," she finished softly. "Just as I am." Sam's hand found hers. He squeezed gently. Clara's mother stood rigid, her face a mask of fury. But something else flickered there too. Something Clara had never seen before. Fear. "You'll regret this," her mother said. "When he tires of you, when you're alone again, you'll come crawling back." "Maybe," Clara said. "But I'd rather be alone than be with people who make me feel worthless." Her father grabbed her mother's arm. "We're leaving, Martha." "But—" "We're leaving." He pulled her toward the wagon. Clara's mother climbed up, her movements jerky with rage. But just before the wagon pulled away, her father looked back. His eyes met Clara's. And for just a moment, his expression softened. Just a flicker. Just a crack in the stone. Then he snapped the reins, and the wagon rolled away. Clara watched until they disappeared down the road. Her whole body was trembling. "Clara!" Emma's small voice came from behind her. Clara turned. Both twins were standing on the porch, their faces pale. "Are you okay?" Grace asked. Clara knelt down and opened her arms. The girls rushed into them, nearly knocking her over. "I'm okay," she whispered. "I'm okay." Sam's hand came to rest on her shoulder. She looked up at him, a tear still wet on her cheeks. "You did good," he said softly. "I've never talked to them like that. Should have done it years ago." Clara almost laughed. Almost. "Come inside," Sam said. "I'll make coffee." "You don't know how to make coffee? Then you can teach me." They walked inside together, the twins between them, and Clara felt something shift inside her chest, like a door finally closing on a room she'd been trapped in her whole life. The rest of the day passed quietly. Clara went through the motions, making lunch, checking on the chickens, helping the twins with their reading. But her mind was elsewhere. In the afternoon, Sam found her sitting on the back porch, staring at nothing. "You've been quiet." "Just thinking." He sat down beside her, close but not touching. "About what they said." "About all of it." Clara pulled her knees to her chest. "My whole life I believed them. Believed I was too much. Too big, too loud, too needy. I made myself as small as possible, and it still wasn't enough. They were wrong. I know that now, but knowing it and feeling it are different things." Sam was quiet for a moment, then he spoke. "After Margaret died, I blamed myself. Told myself I should have noticed the fever sooner, should have ridden faster for the doctor, should have done something different." His voice was rough. "Some nights I still believe it. Clara looked at him. The guilt doesn't just go away, he continued. It stays with you. But you learn to carry it differently. Learn to tell the difference between what's true and what's just noise. How? Sam turned to face her. By finding people who see you clearly, who tell you the truth even when it hurts. He paused. Who love you anyway? Clara's breath caught. Sam, I meant what I said last night. His eyes were intense. I want you to stay, not just for the girls, for me. But we barely know each other. I know enough. He reached out and took her hand. I know you're kind. I know you're strong. I know you make my daughters happy in a way I couldn't manage on my own, and I know that every morning when I wake up, the first thing I want to see is your face. Clara's heart was pounding. That's not nothing, Sam said. That's everything. I'm scared, Clara whispered. Of what? Of believing this is real. Of letting myself hope and then having it taken away. Sam's grip tightened on her hand. I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen. Can't promise people won't talk or that life won't be hard. He leaned closer. But I can promise I'll be here. Every day. Fighting for you. Fighting with you. For as long as you'll have me. Clara looked into his eyes. She saw no deception there. No cruelty. Just a quiet, steady certainty that made her heart ache. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Okay. I'll stay. I'll let myself hope. She smiled through her tears. I'll let myself love you. Sam's face transformed. The hardness melted away, replaced by something soft and vulnerable. Say that again. I love you, Sam Hollister. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. But she didn't mind. This was exactly where she wanted to be. I love you too, he murmured against her hair. God help me, Clara. I love you too. The next Sunday, Sam announced they were going to church. Clara's stomach dropped. After everything that happened, because of everything that happened, Sam's jaw was set. I'm done hiding. Done letting people talk behind our backs. We're going to walk in there together, and anyone who has something to say can say it to my face. Sam, I'm not asking Clara. His voice softened. But I'm hoping you'll come. Clara looked at the twins already dressed in their best clothes, faces hopeful. All right, she said. I'll come. The ride into town felt longer than usual. Clara's hands were clasped tight in her lap, knuckles white. When they reached the church, the yard was already crowded with families. Heads turned as Sam helped Clara down from the wagon. The whispers started immediately. There she is. With the children, no less. Shameful. Absolutely shameful. Clara kept her chin up. Sam walked beside her, his hand on her back. They climbed the church steps. The Reverend stood at the door, his expression pinched. Mr. Hollister, I wasn't expecting you. We're here for the service, Reverend. Yes, well. The Reverend glanced at Clara. Perhaps we should discuss. Nothing to discuss. Sam's voice was firm. We're going inside. He guided Clara through the door. The church fell silent as they walked down the aisle. Every eye was on them. Clara felt the weight of those stares like physical pressure. They took a seat near the front. The twins sat between them, oblivious to the tension. The service began, but Clara couldn't focus. She was too aware of the whispers, the glances, the judgment pressing in from all sides. Then halfway through the sermon, the Reverend paused. Before we continue, he said, I feel compelled to address a matter that has been troubling our congregation. Clara's heart stopped. Mr. Hollister. The Reverend turned to face them. There are concerns about the woman living in your home. About propriety. About the example being set for your children. Sam stood slowly. Go on. We believe it would be best if Mrs. Brennan found alternative accommodations. Dorothy Price sat in the front row, a smug smile on her face. Sam looked at the Reverend, then at Dorothy, then at the congregation. No. The word rang through the church. Excuse me. I said no. Sam's voice was steady. Clara Brennan isn't going anywhere. Murmurs rippled through the pews. Mr. Hollister, surely you understand. I understand plenty. Sam stepped into the aisle. I understand that when my wife died, most of you offered prayers and then went back to your lives. I understand that when I struggled to feed my daughters and keep my ranch from falling apart, only a handful of you offered real help. He looked around the room. And I understand that when a woman showed up, a woman who worked harder than anyone I've ever known, who made my daughters smile for the first time in years, who saved my life in a storm, while some of you were safe in your beds, the only thing you could think to do was gossip. Silence. Clara Brennan is worth more than this whole town put together, Sam continued. And if you can't see that the problem is with your eyes, not with her. He turned to Clara and extended his hand. She took it. Together they walked toward the door. Wait. A voice from the back. Clara turned. An older woman stood up, her face weathered but kind. I was wrong, the woman said. I judged her without knowing her. I'm sorry. Another voice joined in. Me too. Then another, and another. One by one, people stood. Not all of them, but enough. Doc Morgan rose. Sam's right. Mrs. Brennan took care of him when he was hurt. Worked herself half to death fixing what the storm destroyed. That's not scandal. That's character. Hank stood from the back row. She's got more grit than most men I know, and I've known plenty. Dorothy's face went white. She looked around, finding fewer allies than she expected. The Reverend cleared his throat. It seems the congregation is divided. It's not divided, Sam said. The people who matter have spoken. The rest can keep their opinions to themselves. He looked at Clara. His eyes were soft. Ready to go? She nodded. They walked out together, the twins hurrying after them. The sun was bright outside, the air warm and clean. Clara's heart was pounding, but for the first time it wasn't from fear. Sam? Yeah? What happens now? He stopped walking, turned to face her, took both her hands in his. Now, he said, we start living. Emma tugged on his sleeve. Daddy, are you and Clara getting married? Sam looked at his daughter, then at Clara. I don't know, he said. Am I? Clara's breath caught. Sam? I told you I'm not good with words. His voice was rough. But I know what I want. And I want you, Clara Brennan. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. You're asking me to marry you in the middle of a churchyard. Seems fitting. His lips twitched. Unless you'd rather I got down on one knee. Clara laughed. Actually laughed for the first time in what felt like forever. Yes. Sam's eyes widened. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. She squeezed his hands. Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I'll love you and your daughters and this broken-down ranch for as long as you'll have me. The twins screamed with joy. Emma threw herself at Clara's legs. Grace jumped up and down. Sam pulled Clara into his arms and kissed her. Right there in the churchyard, in front of the whole town, in front of everyone who had ever doubted her. And Clara kissed him back. When they finally pulled apart, Sam's forehead rested against hers. I love you, he said. I love you too. Behind them, the church doors opened. People spilled out watching. Some smiled. Some whispered. Some turned away. But Clara didn't care, because she had found something she'd been searching for her whole life. Not just a home, not just a family, but a place where she was finally truly enough. The wedding was set for 3 weeks out. Sam wanted it sooner, but Clara insisted on doing things properly. "I've already given this town enough to talk about," she said. "Let's at least give them a proper wedding to gossip about." Sam had laughed at that. Actually laughed. It was a sound Clara was still getting used to. The days leading up to the ceremony were a whirlwind. Clara mended her best dress, adding new lace to the collar. The twins practiced throwing flower petals until the entire porch was covered. Hank spent hours polishing the wagon until it gleamed. And through it all, Sam was different. Softer, more open. He touched Clara's hand when he passed her in the kitchen, smiled at her across the dinner table, told her she was beautiful when she woke up with her hair tangled and flour on her cheek. "You're staring at me," Clara said one morning. "Can't help it. People will think you've lost your mind. Let them think." He pulled her close. "I've never been more sane." But happiness, Clara was learning, always came with shadows. 3 days before the wedding, Dorothy Price made her final move. Clara was in town picking up fabric for the twins' dresses when she heard the commotion outside the general store. "Mrs. Brennan." She turned. A man she didn't recognize was walking toward her, papers clutched in his hand. He was wearing a suit too fine for Dusty Creek. "Mrs. Clara Brennan." "Yes. I'm here on behalf of the Brennan estate." He thrust the papers toward her. "Your late husband's family has filed a claim against you." Clara's blood went cold. "A claim?" "For outstanding debts. They say Thomas Brennan left considerable obligations upon his death. As his widow, you're responsible." "That's not possible. Thomas had no debts. We had nothing." According to these documents, he borrowed heavily in the months before his death. The man's eyes were cold. $230, payable immediately. Clara's hands shook as she took the papers. The numbers swam before her eyes. $230. She didn't have 230 cents. "If you cannot pay," the man continued, "you'll face debtor's court. Possible imprisonment." Imprisonment. Unless, of course, you leave the territory and forfeit any claims to your new situation. He glanced toward the Hollister ranch. "I believe that would satisfy all parties." Clara understood then. This wasn't about money. This was about Dorothy. "She put you up to this." "I don't know what you mean." "Dorothy Price. She's behind this." The man's expression didn't change. "I'm simply here to deliver documents, ma'am. What you do with them is your concern." He tipped his hat and walked away. Clara stood frozen in the middle of the street, the papers crumpling in her grip. Her heart was racing. Her vision blurred. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when she was so close to happiness. She climbed into the wagon and drove home in a daze. Sam knew something was wrong the moment he saw her face. "What happened?" Clara handed him the papers without a word. He read them. His expression darkened. "This is a lie." "Maybe. But it doesn't matter if it's true or not. If they take me to court..." "They won't." "Sam, you don't know that." "I know Dorothy Price is a snake who can't accept that I chose you." Sam crumpled the papers in his fist. "This is her doing. I'd bet the ranch on it." "Even if it is, what can we do? I don't have $200. Neither do you." Sam was quiet. His jaw worked. "There's a way," he said finally. "But you're not going to like it." "What?" "I sell the north pasture." Clara's heart stopped. "Sam, no. That's half your land." "It's land or you. That's not a choice." He took her hands. "I'll rebuild. We'll rebuild. But I'm not losing you over Dorothy Price's scheming." "There has to be another way." "If there is, I don't see it." Clara pulled away, pacing. Her mind was racing. "What if we prove the debt is false? How your husband's family is in Missouri. We'd need witnesses' documents." "Then we get them." Sam stared at her. "Clara, the wedding is in 3 days." "Then we work fast." She grabbed her shawl and headed for the door. Where are you going? To send a telegram. Clara looked back at him. Thomas kept records. Everything. He was obsessive about it. If these debts are fake, there's proof. And if there isn't, then we sell the pasture. But not before we fight. Sam's eyes softened. I love you. I know. Now, let me go save our future. Clara sent 3 telegrams that day. One to Thomas's cousin, the only member of his family who'd ever shown her kindness. One to the bank in Missouri, where Thomas had done business. And one to the courthouse requesting copies of any financial records bearing Thomas Brennan's name. Then she waited. 2 days passed. No response. The night before the wedding, Clara sat on the porch, unable to sleep. The stars were bright overhead, but she couldn't see them. All she could see was her future crumbling away. Can't sleep either. Sam sat down beside her. Keep thinking about tomorrow, Clara admitted. What if the telegrams don't come? What if Dorothy wins? She won't. You don't know that. I know you. Sam took her hand. I know that every time life knocked you down, you got back up. Every time someone told you you weren't enough, you proved them wrong. You're the strongest person I've ever met, Clara. Dorothy Price doesn't stand a chance. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. I'm tired of fighting. I know. But after tomorrow, you won't have to fight alone anymore. They sat there until dawn, watching the sky turn from black to purple to pink. The wedding morning arrived with clear skies and a gentle breeze. Clara dressed carefully, her fingers trembling. The twins helped with her hair, weaving wildflowers into the braids. You look like a princess, Grace said. A queen, Emma corrected. Clara smiled, but her heart was heavy. No word had come. No telegrams. No proof. Maybe Dorothy had won after all. A knock came at the door. Clara, Hank's voice. Someone's here to see you. Clara walked to the front room, her heart pounding. A young man stood there, dusty and road-worn. In his hand, he held a bundle of papers. Mrs. Brennan. Yes, I'm David Brennan, Thomas's cousin. He smiled. I got your telegram. Rode 3 days straight. Clara's knees nearly buckled. You came. Thomas was a good man, best cousin I ever had. When I heard what his family was trying to do, I couldn't stay silent. He held out the papers. These are his financial records. Every transaction, every loan, every penny. I kept copies after he died because I didn't trust his brothers. Clara took the papers with shaking hands. She scanned them quickly. No debts. No loans. Nothing. It's all here, David said. Thomas never borrowed a dime. The documents they filed are forgeries. Tears streamed down Clara's face. Thank you. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. David's expression grew serious. Thomas's brothers are here. They arrived this morning with a lawyer. They're planning to disrupt the ceremony. Clara's blood ran cold. They're here. At the church. Waiting. Sam appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his best clothes. What's going on? Clara showed him the papers. Explained everything. Sam's face hardened. Then let's go give them something to remember. The church was packed. Word had spread about the confrontation, and half the town had shown up to watch. Clara walked down the aisle on Hank's arm, the twins scattering petals before her. She saw Dorothy Price in the front row, a satisfied smile on her face. She saw 2 hard-faced men she didn't recognize, Thomas's brothers, and she saw Sam standing at the altar, his eyes never leaving hers. The Reverend cleared his throat. Dearly beloved. Wait. One of Thomas's brothers stood up. He was tall and thin with mean eyes. This wedding cannot proceed. The church erupted in murmurs. On what grounds? The Reverend asked. This woman owes our family $230. Until that debt is paid, she has no right to enter into any legal contract, including marriage. Dorothy's smile widened. Clara stepped forward. That debt doesn't exist. I have documents. Forged documents. Clara held up David's papers. I have the real records. Thomas never borrowed anything. He never owed you a penny. Your claim is a lie. The brother's face went red. That's preposterous. David? Clara looked at Thomas's cousin. Would you like to explain? David stood. I kept copies of Thomas's financial records for years. He was meticulous about everything. These documents prove that the debt claim is fabricated. The church buzzed with whispers. The brother pointed at David. You're a traitor to your own family. Thomas was my family. You're just the vultures who picked at his bones after he died. This is outrageous. Enough! Sam's voice cut through the noise. He stepped down from the altar, moving to stand beside Clara. You came here to hurt the woman I love, to steal her future, to punish her for the crime of being happy. His eyes swept the church. Every person in this room knows what you're doing, and it ends now. He looked at the reverend. Continue. The brother lunged forward. You can't. Doc Morgan and Hank stepped into the aisle, blocking his path. Sit down, son, Hank said quietly. Or I'll sit you down. The brother's face twisted with rage, but he sat. Dorothy stood up, her face pale. This isn't over, Samuel. You can't. Dorothy. Sam's voice was calm. I've known you since we were children. I've tolerated your scheming because we were neighbors. But this is done. You're done. If you ever come near my family again, I'll make sure everyone in 3 counties knows exactly what kind of woman you are. Dorothy's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. She gathered her skirts and walked out of the church. Her head held high, but her shoulders shaking. The doors closed behind her. Sam turned back to Clara. His eyes were soft. Now, where were we? The Reverend smiled. I believe I was about to marry you. The ceremony was short and sweet. Clara's hands trembled as she spoke her vows. Sam's voice was steady, his eyes never leaving hers. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Sam pulled her into his arms and kissed her so thoroughly that Emma covered her eyes and Grace giggled. The church erupted in applause. Clara looked out at the faces before her. Some were smiling, some were crying. A few still looked skeptical, but she didn't care. Because Sam's arm was around her, the twins were tugging at her dress, and for the first time in her life, she knew exactly where she belonged. The celebration lasted until sunset. Tables were set up in the churchyard. Hank played fiddle while couples danced. The twins ran wild, their flower crowns askew, their laughter ringing out across the evening air. Clara sat on a bench watching it all, her heart so full it hurt. Mrs. Hollister. She turned. Sam stood before her, hand extended. May I have this dance? I don't know how to dance. Neither do I. He grinned. We'll figure it out together. He pulled her to her feet into his arms. They swayed together, not quite in time with the music, but neither of them cared. Thank you, Clara whispered. For what? For choosing me, for fighting for me, for seeing something worth loving when everyone else saw someone worth mocking. Sam pulled back to look at her. His eyes were bright. You know what I saw that day at the station? When my girls ran to you. What? I saw a woman who didn't run, didn't hide, didn't break even when the whole world was laughing at her. He cupped her face in his hands. I saw strength. I saw grace. I saw the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I love you, Sam Hollister. I love you too, Clara Hollister. He kissed her again, right there in front of everyone. And Clara kissed him back, not caring who saw, not caring what they thought. Because she had found her home, her family, her place in the world. And nothing would ever take that away. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the twins were asleep, Clara stood on the porch of her new home. The stars were scattered across the sky like diamonds. The air was warm and still. Sam came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Regrets? Not a single one. Good. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Because you're stuck with me now. Clara laughed softly. I think I can live with that. They stood there for a long moment watching the night. Clara. Yes. Those twins of ours knew what they were doing that day at the station. What do you mean? I went there to find a wife. I had a list of what I thought I wanted. Young, pretty, compliant. He shook his head. But Emma and Grace, they didn't care about any of that. They saw something I couldn't. They saw you. Clara turned in his arms. And what do you see now? Sam's eyes traced her face, her rounded cheeks, her soft chin, her eyes that had seen so much pain and still held so much hope. I see my wife, he said. I see my partner. I see the woman who saved my life in a storm and saved my heart every day since. I see someone who was told she was too much her whole life when the truth is she was always exactly enough. Clara's tears fell freely now, but for the first time they weren't tears of pain. I spent my whole life trying to be smaller, she whispered. Trying to take up less space, trying to disappear. And now? She smiled through her tears. Now I'm done shrinking, done apologizing for existing, done believing the lies people told me about who I was and what I deserved. She took his hand and placed it over her heart. I'm Clara Hollister now, wife, mother, partner, and I'm going to take up all the space I want. Sam grinned. That's my girl. He kissed her one more time, soft and sweet and full of promise. Then they went inside to the home they'd built together, to the children who had chosen them, to the life they'd fought for and won. And Clara Ruth Hollister, who had been thrown away by everyone she ever loved, finally understood the truth. She had never been too wide to wed. She had simply been waiting for someone with arms wide enough to hold her. The next morning, Clara woke to sunlight streaming through the window and two small bodies bouncing on her bed. "Mama!" Emma shouted. "Wake up!" "It's morning," Grace added. Clara sat up, her heart catching on that word. Mama. They'd never called her that before. "Say that again." "Say what?" Emma tilted her head. "What you just called me." The twins looked at each other, then back at Clara. "Mama," Grace said softly. "You're our mama now," Emma added. "Daddy said so, and we agreed, last night, while you were dancing." Clara pulled them both into her arms, tears streaming down her face. "I love you," she choked out. "Both of you. So much." "We love you too, Mama." Sam appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame. "Looks like I'm interrupting something." "Daddy." The twins scrambled off the bed and ran to him. We called her Mama." "I heard." Sam's eyes met Clara's over their heads. "Seems fitting." Clara wiped her face and smiled. "Seems perfect." Sam crossed to the bed and sat beside her. The twins piled on a tangle of arms and legs and laughter. "This is what I wanted," Sam said quietly. "A family. A real one. Not perfect, but ours." Clara looked at the three faces before her. Her husband. Her daughters. Her family. "This is what I wanted too," she said. "I just didn't know it existed." "It didn't." Sam took her hand. "Not until you came." Emma tugged on Clara's sleeve. "Mama, can we have flapjacks?" Clara laughed. "Yes, baby, we can have flapjacks." She rose from the bed, surrounded by her family, and walked toward the kitchen to start another day. Outside, the Texas sun climbed higher. The ranch stretched toward the horizon. And somewhere in town, people were probably still talking, still whispering, still judging. But Clara didn't care, because she had learned something those people would never understand. Worth isn't something you earn. It isn't something others give you. It isn't measured in the size of your waist or the width of your hips or the smallness of the space you take up. Worth simply is. And Clara Ruth Hollister, once called too wide to wed, had finally found people who saw hers. Not despite who she was, but because of it. And that made all the difference.